Mo ti lo 1 hour 30 minutes ní mọ́tò, imagine.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Those of us online, please can you hear me? Okay, if you can hear me, please. We're sorry for starting a bit late. And I would like to request that you give us additional 2 to 3 minutes. Those of us physically here having issues with well, that will be resolved in the next 2 minutes. So please bear with us.
Hello?
Yeah, look, can you hear me? Hello, all right, can you hear me? Yeah, good morning, everyone. So sorry for the delay. We'll get right into today's class. Please, can you signify if you can hear me and if you can see my screen at this point? Please, those of us online, can you hear me and see my screen? So, all right. Okay, so I've gotten yes. Okay. Today we'll be looking at Next.js for centralized application part one. I believe all of us are familiar with front-end technologies, and we are mostly front-end developers taking this class. So at this point, we'll be diving deep into Next.js. Some of us are familiar with Next.js, how to work with it. We understand that it's a framework, it's a React framework, right? And so we'll look at how to utilize Next.js and how to connect our decentralized application to the Arbitrum blockchain and how to connect our wallet and all. So firstly, we'll understand Next.js and we'll look at Wagmi and Rainbowkit. We'll also look at Viem. So all of these are all tools in utilizing and utilizing our Ethereum blockchain and also our Arbitrum blockchain. You can make use of all of this to connect, to interact with the blockchain. Right. Now, what is Next.js? Next.js is a React framework. I know most of us should understand what React is. So React is a library of JavaScript. It kind of mixes of components and other features and functionalities, right, to build fast and efficient web applications. What Next.js does is also a framework of React. It's going to be a framework of React. It simplifies the development of server-rendered React applications. As we know, React itself is client-side. Everything you're going to do is going to be on the client. When we say client, what do we mean? Client is everything is done on the browser. So in these terms and in this context of web applications, when we refer to clients, we are referring to browsers, right? And React is a client-side framework. Everything is done on a framework. Where Next.js comes in is it comes in with server-rendered React applications. So in scenarios where we want to make use of server to build our, like, want to include server into our web applications and all, Next.js simplifies the process for us. So it offers a range of features and conventions that makes it easier to build web applications while providing excellent performance out of the box. So we are sure of this. Once you follow principles and so once you follow the structures and principles, we are sure you are going to get excellent performance out of the box. Oracle, please don't say something. So what are the key features of Next.js? It includes server-side rendering, static side generation, client-side routing, automatic code splitting, an intuitive file-based routing system. All these features enable developers to create fast, SEO-friendly web applications with minimal configuration. Now, we'll be looking at the key features of Next.js. We would understand the features one by one. Firstly, server-side rendering. When we say server-side rendering, this allows rendering React components on the server instead of the client. This results in faster initial page loads and better search engine optimization, since search engines can crawl the fully rendered HTML. So what happens is the server sends the HTML, right, to the browser, and then the browser renders that particular HTML sent by the server. So that's what we mean by server-side rendering. The server is the React components are rendered on the server, and then the server sends it back as a HTML, and then the browser renders it. Now, usually we know when we do things on the server, it actually results most times in faster initial page load. So going through this process and not the browser compiling and rendering everything, when we make use of the browser to render components and all, we have seen that it has like a slower initial page load. It takes time, and that's where you see probably like suspense or even loaders. I'm sure I've noticed it when we open up some web applications. You see the certain loader spinning firstly before it loads the content and all. Now, when you render the component on the server, you'd actually get faster initial page loads and better SEO. So when we talk about SEO, when people search for your web page on search engines like Google, Bing, and all, that's what we mean by those are search engines. And you need to optimize your web page or your web applications so that when people search for certain keywords or even certain functionalities that you have, your web application or web page comes up. So in order to optimize your web application or your decentralized application, server-side rendering helps to optimize that better for you. Now, secondly, we have static site generation. So SSG pre-renders pages at build time. When we talk about build time, when you run your build, before you deploy your web page, you need to build it first. That is no longer in development mode. Now, what SSG does is that it gets to pre-render these pages at that particular time that are building the application. This approach generates static HTML files for each page, resulting in incredibly fast page loads and enabling easy deployment to CDNs. Now, another key feature is client-side routing. Next.js provides a built-in client-side routing system. So you can route your applications on the client side of your browser. You can create dynamic single-page applications without the need for complex routing configurations. So we'll see how to route our applications and how easy it is. Now, what is Wagmi? Wagmi is a development tool for Ethereum virtual machine-based blockchains. It provides over 20 React hooks for interacting with wallets, contracts, and transactions. This Wagmi is not just compatible with Next.js, it's also compatible with React itself. And for mobile developers, you can actually make use of Wagmi with React Native too. Now, it has built-in wallet connectors for popular wallets like MetaMask, Wallet Connect, Coinbase Wallet, and all. This tool offers various features such as caching, request duplication, multi-core batching, and persistence. When we say React Hook, we are referring to a piece of code that's reusable. I believe we know React hooks. We have our normal React hooks like use effect, we have use memo, use callback, and the rest, some other React hooks. And those of us that have been working with React, we should be familiar with those certain hooks. Now, we can also create custom React hooks where you don't want to duplicate code. One popular rule in programming in general is what? Don't duplicate yourself. So you see the principle of, it's called dry, right? Wherever you see dry principle in programming, what it means is don't repeat yourself. Now, there are scenarios where in creating your components, your React components, two or multiple components wants to make use of the same block of code, right? So probably out of 5 components wants to fetch a user details. And to fetch those user details, you need about 10 lines of code to do that. Ideally, not ideally, normally, the first instinct is to do what? Is to make sure all of them have that code one by one. And then it means you keep pasting the same lines of code over and over and again for the 10 components that need them. Instead of doing that, you can create a custom hook. And once you create that, you can export that custom hook. All the 10 components that need those lines of code or those block of code, they can easily import those hooks and make use of it. So in terms of logic, React hooks are quite useful and important. And Wagmi provides over 20 React hooks. So you don't need to go ahead and rewrite your lines of code over and over and again. Now, additionally, Wagmi can automatically refresh data on changes in the wallet, block, or network. So you don't need to worry about refreshing data whenever there's a change. Wagmi handles that automatically for you. This is written in TypeScript, and developers can infer types from APIs. So what this means automatically is because it's written in TypeScript, whenever you pass an API to the hook that you're using at that particular point, there's auto completion for you. So you don't need to second guess or it automatically completes that for you. Now, what is Viem? Viem is a low-level TypeScript interface for Ethereum that enables developers to interact with the Ethereum blockchain, including JSON, RPC, API abstraction, smart contract interaction, wallet and signing implementation, coding, passing utilities, and more. Viem is like an alternative to Ether.js. If you don't want to make use of Ether.js, you can make use of Viem. Viem is quite new, so in terms of documentation, you might not really see more, but it's actually, in terms of size, bundle size, it's quite lower than Ether.js. And you can make use of Viem in your React and also your Next.js. It works, and it can also work hand in hand with Wagmi. And lastly, we have Rainbowkit. This is a React library that makes it easy to add wallet connection to your decentralized application. It's intuitive, responsive, and customizable. want to connect your MetaMask to your decentralized application, you can make use of Rainbowkit. It's quite simple to configure. You just need to pass in the necessary chains, pass in there's also what we call transport, and different options you can pass in to configure your Rainbowkit. It's also customizable because it comes with a UI. So you don't need to start writing your beautiful UI from scratch. Rainbowkit comes with its own UI, and you can customize that UI to your taste or to your design. And it's also responsive. So it can be used mobile devices, can be used on desktop devices. We also have tablets, right? So that's going to be all for the theoretical parts. What we'll be doing firstly is we're going to create our Next.js application. And from there, we'll install our Wagmi, Viem, and Rainbowkit. Now, Rainbowkit works hand in hand with Viem and Wagmi. So you would have to, if you are going to make use of Rainbowkit, you have to install Wagmi and Viem also. So I'll just go ahead and start our practical session for today. Please, do you have any questions so far? Have any question? Okay, in the absence of no question, so the code for today's class is on GitHub, and for those of us that want to install the code, you can pull it from our GitHub repository, the Arbitrum Bootcamp, and you can check training 19A for it. But before you can make use of that particular project, you need to you have to install the dependency for those projects. So I would want us to be conscious of that. So before you can start, you need to install the dependencies. So you can make use of npm install to install the dependencies, and then from there you can start. You can start the live server and run your Next.js application. All right. So that will be all for today. So as I said initially, the first step is what? First step is we're going to initialize our Next.js application. How do you do that? First off, you need to make sure you have npm and Node.js installed on your laptop. And I believe at this point we should all have that installed on our laptops. So to create your Next app, you do npm create Next app. npx, sorry. So please let me zoom in. Yeah. Right. npm create Next app. You do this inside of your terminal or inside of your VS Code. So VS Code also has a terminal, or you do that on your normal terminal. It's going to prompt you what is your project name. You can do this Arbitrum Next.js, right? So it's going to ask you, do you want to make use of TypeScript for this project? Now for type safety, we're going to make use of TypeScript. For those of us that don't understand TypeScript, please let's endeavor to learn TypeScript. Right? Even if it's to learn the basics, know your data types, how to infer your data types and all. So let's ensure to do that. You want to make use of ESLint to your project. What ESLint does in our normal front-end application, it helps you to gives you like a guideline to follow, right, for your applications. So number one, we don't, depending on how you configure it, but basic configuration and types and rules it gives you is that you don't leave unused variables. So it gets to warn you that you have unused variables. You have not passed in necessary dependencies to your React hooks and all. So it just gets to warn you for certain errors or mistakes in your application. So yeah, we'll make use of that. Would you like to make use of the SRC directory? Yes, let's make use of that. We do like to make use of the experimental app folder. For this class, we're not going to make use of that. As you can see, it's experimental. So let's make use of the normal pages that we know. What import layers would you like to get configured? So you can, what import alias does is when you're importing your component or pages in React, what happens is you use your dot slash to go back to a folder, right? When you're importing, you use your dot slash, depending on where the folder is located. So what import alias does is, instead of you going like you're going to your deep level or you have deep nested components and you're trying to import them, you can just make use of any of these characters, either the @ character or asterisk. You can make use of that and automatically it's going to import the component for you, depending on what you choose. So once you do that, it starts the installation and it installs the dependency for you automatically. So we can just wait for it to be done. It shouldn't take time. Oh yeah, I don't know why my idea asked me for Tailwind. So yes, you can. We're going to make use of Tailwind. That's quite interesting. I didn't ask for Tailwind. Oh yeah. What happened was supposed to pass in at latest to the MPS script. Let's make use of Tailwind CSS. Yes. Okay, good. So we have our application installed. Depending on the folder where you initialize the project, you're going to find the application there, right? Your lines of code there. So personally, I installed mine on my desktop. So if I come here, I'm going to see Arbitrum Next.js, right? Yeah. So this is what I'm going to see when I come here. So these are them. And then so you can do this. So for those of us that have these short cuts for VS Code where you do code and dots, you can easily kickstart your VS Code, right? Your code editor. But personally, that's not been working for me, so I would manually import our folder. Yeah. So I'll come to desktop. Then I'm going to import this. Okay, so I've opened up our Next.js inside of our local code editor. And I'm making it our local because most projects are going to work on going to be locally. So just explain our folder structure, our project structure. First off, you can see node modules, right? Node modules are your installed dependency. So notice the code we have on our GitHub. Node modules is excluded from it. And that's because it's usually large, depending on your project size and the level, the amount of dependency you use. Node modules are usually large. And is to push that to GitHub is not is not a good practice. So what you do is you ignore it automatically. When you create a Next.js, you will see it ignored. So your git ignore, you're going to say Node.js 5% node modules ignored. And that's because if you want to deploy, automatically your CDN is going to install your dependencies inside of your package.json automatically for you. Now, after that, we have our public where our icon is located. We also have Next.js and all of this SVG. And then we now have the SLC folder. Now, SLC is more like source, right? Yeah. And inside of it, we have our styles and we also have our pages. Check the styles, you see Tailwind is like pass is imported here. And then we have some global configurations that we applied to the whole application. And inside of our pages, what else are we see here? So you have our package.json file. Package.json is where every configuration for your application is, right? So you get to pass in a name for, this is the default name we passed in. You can see that as a name, and then you can see the version. So you can always increment that at that particular point. So you can see if it's a private repository or not, and then you have scripts. So these scripts are what you're going to use to operate, right? This is what you're going to be working with. If you want to run the server, you use that. You want to, so they all have different functionalities and all. Then you have your dependencies. Your dependencies are React, Next. As you add more libraries, you're going to see them in your dependencies. And then we have dev dependencies. So I believe we all know we should all like understand that. But simply dev dependencies are dependencies that are run locally. Right. So in production and all, they are going to be installed or that's how it works. Now moving on to the main thing. We come to our app.js, our underscore app.js. This file holds the global state of our application. Right. So this is where everything is routed to and from. Our whole application, Next.js application is going to be run from here. And then from here, you can now have different routes and pages. So we also have documents. So this is just like our HTML file, but this time around, they are imported with a capitalized name. And we have index.js. So index.js is going to be our normal home page. So this is our normal home page. When you install Next.js, you see that automatically it comes with this default page. And if you want to view this default page, what do? You use npm run dev. Remember from our package.json file, under our script you see dev, right? So you need to do npm or run dev, and then you see that it's running locally on localhost 3000. I'll come to our browser. Sorry, a minute. So I'll come to our browser and open up localhost 3000. So yeah, you can see this default page from Next.js. We can see everything here. So this is where we've been running our Rainbowkit UI to connect our model. So if I remove this, you'll see we'll get an empty so we are getting an empty page. That's because I removed every customizable UI from it. I'll just get hello world. Okay, now so that's it for Next.js. The next thing we're going to do, we'll be looking at how to install our Rainbowkit, Wagmi, and Viem to our project. So there's this command, and to easily access the command, just navigate to Rainbowkit. And under installation, you would see under installation and manual setup, you will see npm install Rainbowkit. What this does is it's going to install Rainbowkit first, and it will install the peer dependencies. So remember, I said Rainbowkit works with Wagmi and Vim. So that's why you see Wagmi is also going to be installed and Vim is going to be installed. And lastly, you see Tanstack React Query, right? Tanstack React Query is like a asynchronous library, which is like a asynchronous state management, which is used in React. When fetching data or trying to mutate or manipulate data in your React application, React Query is quite useful. So I would like us to check that out later on. It's quite useful in fetching data, and also like it can also be used like as a state management tool. So all of these are peer dependencies of Rainbowkit. So what you're going to do is you do that. So once I copy this, I'll come down to the terminal. So I remember I said VS Code has its own terminal. So I don't need to go back to my normal terminal. I can use the initial terminal we use, but just go ahead to make use of VS Code terminal. I'll create a new terminal, right? And then paste that particular code and run it. So you just wait for a bit for it to install. For those of us that make use of Yarn as our package manager, instead of using npm install, you use yarn add. So let's take note of that. Use yarn add for our. Yeah. So let's take note. We are running multiple installations here. One is what Rainbowkit. Second is what Wagmi. Third is Vim. And these are two X's specifying the version of the Vim that we want. And then we have query, advanced stack query. So if you want to install multiple dependencies or libraries in your React and Next.js, you can always use space to differentiate them. Yeah, so seems like our network is slow. Okay, so I'm getting an error, which is like system based on my system, and to get past that. Okay, so they are successfully installed, and we can now make use of the project of the dependencies. So what we do is we come back to our app underscore app file. This is where, remember I said this is where like everything is going to happen globally. If you want anything to happen throughout your application, this is where you configure them. So to configure Wagmi, Viem, and the rest, this is where the configuration is going to happen. And we're going to pass in our providers. So providers are going to, we're going to wrap the application with our providers. And from there, we can now make use of the library. So firstly, to make use of the CSS that comes with Rainbowkit, we import the CSS first. How do you import CSS in React? You just use import and the string afterwards. So we're going to do Rainbowkit means / Rainbowkit. Right. You can also add additional styles of CSS. Automatically, for those of us using TypeScript, it's going to autocomplete for us. So you can see now we have imported our CSS file for Rainbowkit, and the styles are going to be applied to our model and everything we need to do. The next thing we're going to need is we're going to need our Wagmi provider, and and then we would also need our what else do we need? We will need a forget default config from Rainbowkit. Now, what this get default config is going to make use of the default config, right, that comes with Rainbowkit, while we can see add additional configuration to it. So we can add our customized configuration to it. And also we need to make use of our React query. We need to configure that also. So to configure that, we would make use of query client and query client provider. All right. So far we have made how many? We have made 4 import statements. I think we also need, we would also need our Rainbowkit provider. Now, I'm sure we have seen providers, and then we're wondering what are all these providers. For those of us that are quite familiar with React context, use context. How many of us are familiar with it? Now, when we use context, is more like a state management, right? That comes with React. And to make use of that state management, there's now context and provider. So provider is usually wrapped, and you actually see your providers at your app level. That is this app file, you're going to see your provider. And then you're going to wrap your whole application with these providers that we have. So how do we do that? What we're going to do is, we can see this component, right? This component that we have. Just cut that. What's going to happen is, I'm going to wrap this component inside of our Wagmi provider first, and then also our Rainbowkit provider. And query client provider. All our providers were wrapping them, and then inside of the main inside of the last provider, you paste back your components. You can always put it back. So this is for me more like a tree view, right? This is how you configure your providers. Now, we can see some of our providers are throwing errors. Provider like Wagmi provider, and we also have clients, query client provider. To set up our query clients, it's quite simple. All you just need to do is what? You just initialize your query client. So this is like a class. So you just do new query client. And here you pass in query client is supposed to sorry. So for your client provider, your query client provider, remember I said query client handles your asynchronous state management. So you can use it to fetch data. It runs, if you want to catch your data, helps you with all of that. It's quite extensive and good library. So also I would want us to take a look at that probably after the class. Just go ahead to research about it. Now back to our Wagmi provider. There are different ways to add our configuration to Wagmi provider. There's a create config that comes with Wagmi itself. You can make use of that. There's also this get default config that comes with Rainbowkit. Now, if you make use of this get default config that comes with Rainbowkit, automatically it's going to get the normal default configuration from Wagmi, while having the ability to customize or add more configuration. So I'll just name this config, which is our normal, which is a variable. And inside of it, I'm going to call our get default config. All right. But now it's throwing an error, which means I supposed to pass an argument to it. It expects one argument. That argument is going to be an update. And inside of this, you can always pass whatever you want to pass. So there's the option to pass app name, app description, app icon, application URL. All of this, you can customize them to your taste. So for app name, I'm just going to name this Arbitrum Blockchain. And then you can add your app descriptions and the rest. I'm not going to add that. I only need the app name. Now, the next thing is you can now pass in your chains. Now, how do you pass in your chains? Pass them as an array. So this means it supports multiple chains. When we say chains, we're talking about network. We have your Ethereum, we have Arbitrum, we have Arbitrum Sequoia, we have what other chain do we have? Base, Optimum, Polygon, and the host of them. Now, for chains, you pass them in as an array. But you're not going to pass in strings. Wagmi has a list of chains that you can always import. Wagmi has, Viem has. So what do? You want to import Arbitrum Sequoia. So automatically from Viem itself, you can even get to the chains that you want. So now just typing in Arbitrum, I can see that they have Arbitrum, Global, Sepolia, and most of them. What we are making use of what is Arbitrum, Sepolia. That's what I'm making use of since the beginning of this class. If you want to import Ethereum, right? So mainnet is Ethereum. Whatever is the mainnet, just know it's Ethereum. And the host of them, you want to import Celo, Celo is there. If you want to import Celo testnet, you see Celo Alpha Drawings, right? So I'm just going to stick with Arbitrum Sepolia. So inside of your chains, you would pass in the imported chains from Viem, right? And inside here, you're going to pass in Arbitrum Sepolia. Okay, so you also need project ID. So how do you get your project ID? Project ID is needed if you're going to make use of Wallet Connect. So if you want to make use of Wallet Connect gives you multiple options. So you can always go to Wallet Connect and get your project ID from there. But I'll just leave that to be an empty string because we are not going to make use of Wallet Connect today. And then if your application makes use of server side, remember we said Next.js makes use of server side rendering. One thing you can pass is SSR is equals to true. They're trying to say server side rendering is true. For your normal React applications, you don't need to pass this, or any framework that doesn't support server side rendering, you don't need to pass this. Right. So for now, this is enough to kickstart your application. Probably as your application expands, you can always come back here, add more configuration, or if your application supports multiple networks, you can always come back here, add the networks as chains. So what you do here is what config is equal to config as a prop, and then you're out of errors. Okay, so for now, that's what we need for our app file. You can now go to the page where you want to connect your wallet. Like, remember, we are making use of our index.ts as our home page, and we want to make use of this to connect our wallet to our MetaMask. So what you do is come here and you import connect button. Now, you can make use of this connect button, or you can make use of the hook that comes with Rainbowkit. But to simplify this, we can just make use of connect button for now. Then you call that connect button. Now, if you go back to our server, no project ID found. So probably we should just pass in a string or so. Something so we don't make it. Oh, okay. So please let's take note of this. Your Rainbowkit provider has to come after your query client provider. So initially I did it like this. After Rainbowkit, I passed in query client provider. But you can see I was getting an error of no query client set. So you need to ensure you follow this order. All right. So this is what you get You get a connect wallet button. Remember, we imported connect wallet from this connect wallet button, and then I don't know it's the tips. So what happens is you can click on connect wallet, and then brings out a modal. So you can see this is why we imported the CSS. It comes in with this intuitive UI that's responsive and good to see. Automatically, we can see I have MetaMask installed on my browser and Brave Wallet also. So it's going to pick out the installed wallet. And then you also have options of other wallets. So this is the Wallet Connect that I said you need the project ID for. If you're going to make use of Wallet Connect, you have to get your project ID. But since we are going to make use of MetaMask, we don't need that project ID for now. So I can click on MetaMask, it pops up my MetaMask. I can connect my wallet. If you're on another network, it's going to ask you to switch that network. But I'm currently on Arbitrum Blockchain. And then you can see, once you are connected, you will see your balance. Then you can also see, you can click on it and then you see your address. You can copy your address, you can disconnect. So do you see how simplified it is now? I'm sure this is much easier than the Ethernet that were there last week, right? So this is how you make use of Rainbowkit, and this is how you make use of Wagmi. Now, Wagmi has a lot of hooks. To list them out, what I'll just do is you can always go to wagmi.sh and look for the documentation. So you can click on get started, right? Yeah. And then scroll down on this sidebar. And once you scroll down, you see a section called hooks. And then you get a host of them. Now you can see you have different hooks. You have user accounts. And use this user account hook to get the current account. So inside of your home file, you can come in here, import user account from Wagmi. And then you can now initialize the hook. So now you can destructure this, or you can just give it a normal variable name. To destructure it, you do what? You just use your object, and then you can now get your address. There's addresses. Wait, okay, to get a list of all of them, let me just name this account and then do account dot. Yeah, so you can see you can get your address, you can get addresses, you can get chain, what chain are you currently on? You can get chain ID, you can get connector, right? Connector, you can get the status, is it connected? You are going to get, is it connected, disconnecting, is disconnected, is reconnecting as booleans, as your true or false value, and then you also have status. So what I'll do is I'll just, okay, so I'll go back to the structuring this, and I can do is connected, is connecting. What else again? Address. Yeah, let's do addresses. Now, making use of all of this, we can see we can build our decentralized applications and manage it in a standard way. So, for example, what do I mean? If I want to show a loader when it's connecting, what do I have to do? I will just come here and say if connecting is connecting right, return loading, right? And then if it's not connected, return this collect. Okay, let's make use of, let's put this inside of a log. If it's not connected, we can pass in connect wallet. And then please connect your wallet. And if it's connected, so automatically this means this is only going to render if it's connected. And inside of here, we can now pass in our address or connected address. So we have this conditional components where if it's connecting, it returns loading. If it's not connected, we have please connect your wallet, and then we will pass in the connect button, and then once it's connected, we now have the address. So we'll come back to this. So because it's connected, we can see our connected address. So to probably we don't have this. So to disconnect, there's another hook which is use connect, right? But we'll come back to this. So let me just we'll come back to that actually. So yeah, I'll disconnect from here. And once I disconnected, I get what? Please connect your wallet and the button. So which means this is running currently. So I connect to my MetaMask. Now, since it's loading, we can see loading. And then once you connect, I get this. So as front-end developers, we have to make sure for user experience, you would actually condition your components so the user knows what's happening at certain points in your application. So this is how you work with the use connect and all. Now, going back to the documentation, we also have use balance. So for use balance, you'd pass in an argument, and instead of the argument, you pass in the address. Now, for this address, you can use it to just find the balance of that particular address. So instead of passing in this string, you can always pass in this address that you have access to. Remember, we have address from user accounts. So simply to do that, we'll just use balance. And so it's not the address is even optional. So you can pass in the address, you can just leave it at that. So let's go to the log balance. So console the log balance.data, or you can destructure it and get data from here, depending on you in your use case. So we come here, console the log by getting undefined. Let's pass in address and see. So yeah, because I didn't pass in the address, I was getting undefined. Now I'm getting the decimal of the token, which is 18 formatted. So it's returning the formatted value for you, the symbol and then the value also. So I can always pass this to my UI. So I can always say what balance is what. So we know if you want to pass in a variable or dynamic value, you use your curly braces. So we can always do balance the data. So formatted is bringing this, which means it's going to be depreciated very soon. So we can just make use of value. Now, I want us to be conscious of something. When you are trying to make use of your balance, there's a high chance you might get undefined, right? So which means there's a chance where your user might see undefined, or if your application is expecting a string and it gets undefined, what that means is your front end is going to break at that point, and your users are going to see a blank screen. So you need to make sure you cover scenarios where you know the address or whatever value you're trying, your dynamic value may not have a value at that point. It might be null or undefined or even another data type. So what you do here is you just make sure. So you can almost see I'm getting a TypeScript error where type big int or undefined is not assignable to type React node. So what you just do is you can just do a conditional statement where you can always say probably if balance.data exists, or if you don't want to use. So when I do this optional, this question mark, right? So if you don't want to do that, you can always give your balance a default value. So how do you do that? You can always come to data, and then you use the column and then give it a default value. So probably data, we can now say value is equals to 0. And what else again? It's probably the same, but I'm just trying to. So generally, if you are building your application, you can always add a default value to this. Okay, yeah. So the values are not what I'm passing in are not are not. Yeah. So you can just do since begin to is not. You can always format your data. Yeah. So I was getting error of being it is not assignable to React node. So that's because it's a big integer. And in order to pass that, you can always format the iter. So we have format iter from Vim. Vim has that. Once you save that and come back to your application, we get balance of 0. Now for the conditional statement where I was trying to pass in default values, there are different ways to pass in default values if you want. It could be you can reassign this to a new variable and then check if it's undefined. If it's undefined, pass in your default values. Or you can come back here and add this optional question mark where you can say if balance of data exists, then render this. So any questions so far? We can see how we can optimize all of these hooks to build our decentralized applications. If you want to read contracts, there's the read contract hook. So how do you read contracts? You read contract by passing in the API of the contract. In scenarios where maybe the API is quite big, right? We have a big contract. You can always copy a part of that API that asks the function you want to use at that particular point and pass it in as API. And then you can now pass in the address of the smart contract and pass in the function name. So inside of your API, this function name must exist inside of your API. So if you are reading your normal ERC20 token, I believe we know there's total supply as a function to see the amount of tokens that the particular token has, right? So you can always read that, and then inside of your results, you can fetch, you can see the result. So if it's a function that has argument, you can pass in the argument as an array, where you have arguments passing, depending if there are 3 arguments, you pass them in as an array of 3 lengths. So you pass in the first argument. If it's an address, you pass in the address like this. The second one is an integer, you pass in the integer as the second value in your argument. And then you also have account and all. So depending on depending on what the smart contract needs, pass them in. Now to disconnect, so if you want to make use of use chains, this use chain, what it does is it returns the configured chains. Whatever you configure in this config, whenever you run your use chains, you're going to get this. And then you would now see the details about each chain. So let me just click into this. We can see that we can get the chain ID of the chain. So all of these are already included in Vim already configures this for you. So if you want to add a custom chain, you follow this format, and then you pass in the ID, the name, native currency, RPC URLs, block explorers, that is, and all like that. Okay, so any questions so far? Let's try this use disconnect. Come back. And then we can say disconnect async. So we can hit the normal button and connect. And say on click. If you want to make use of so you see it works, disconnect works, and if I refresh, it's no longer connected. I can always connect back. I believe one good thing about this for front-end developers is the fact that this data persists. So what do I mean by persist? If I refresh, I still get my value, right? So you can see that the data persists. You don't need to undo probably on refresh or storing the data in local storage or whatever persistent storage you want to make use of. All right, so we have seen how to connect to Arbitrum Sepolia and how to interact with our with Next.js and Wagmi, Viem, and Rainbowkit. Hey, so any question? Any question? This one nobody is asking question. It means we all understand that we got to connect our wallet to our our Next.js. We can connect our Next.js to Rainbowkit, to MetaMask, to Brave Wallet, and the rest. We can all do that, right? Okay. Yes. Okay, so in the absence of question, we still have 30 minutes left. So what I want us to do is we can always what we have learned so far, we can try to replicate that from now to 12. Yeah. So let's make use of the remaining time that we have to learn. And in case there's any question, you can always ask on the WhatsApp group, WhatsApp platform. For those of us physically here, you can always access, you can just signal me and I'll help you out. All right. Okay, so tomorrow we're looking at IPFS, how to make use of IPFS with Next.js, how to upload from Next.js to IPFS. So you can always go ahead, learn more. All right, so please let's not forget our assignment for this class, what we're going to be doing. It's quite simple. I think the assignment is to create your own SGS and connect to Arbitrum, right? Right, testnet. So we can always the video and replicate that. All right. So let's have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.
The webinar has ended. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.